becoming what we used to be calling shooting stars.
What is going on, everybody? I am back today to discuss a new release movie that just dropped on Prime Video. And typically, this is not the movie that I would just immediately go watch, especially because of the droves and droves of negative reviews pouring in for it. But after reading some of those reviews, I felt that this movie aligns perfectly with a segment that I've been doing on my channel called Bad, Good, or Misunderstood, where I go through movies that are considered so bad it's good, just plain terrible, or sometimes misunderstood by critics and actually great. And I was really fascinated because I've never seen this movie before, going in completely blind, but reading some of the comments just made it seem like it was going to be an absurd viewing experience no matter what. And the movie I'm going to be telling you about today is War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds is directed by Rich Lee. Will Radford is a top analyst for Homeland Security who tracks potential threats through a mass surveillance program, until one day an attack by an unknown entity leads him to question whether the government is hiding something from him and from the rest of the world. So, I went into this completely blind other than reading a couple of little reviews beforehand, which is what sparked my interest. And obviously, War of the Worlds is a property that has been created multiple times up to this point now. And I did not know what to expect. And here's what I will say. This is easily one of the worst movies that I've seen in 5 or 10 years. It's horribly made. It's completely inept. Some of the worst performances that I've ever seen in a movie, period. There's no question about that. Also, the amount of shameless product placement throughout the entire runtime of this movie is some of the funniest shit that I've seen in a long time. But what I will say is, despite how ineptly made this is and how awful it's put together and just how it lacks direction and the performances are terribly bad, it is one of the most entertaining experiences I've had in a long time. This made me laugh until I cried more times than I can imagine. Honestly, the best way I can describe it, in the first episode of this series, I discussed Neil Breen. This would be a perfect property for Neil Breen to make. I mean, governmental conspiracies, aliens taking over. This felt like if you added Neil Breen into this film, it would have just been a perfect viewing experience. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it today. So normally this is when I would break down the full plot of the movie for you, but that is worthless. There is really no point for me to tell you anything about this movie other than Ice Cube is a Homeland Security agent who spies on his kids with his very high caliber job. Aliens invade the planet. He is somehow the person that everyone relies on the most to keep data protected and to ensure the safety of the entire planet. And it's him trying to keep his kids safe while simultaneously trying to ensure that aliens do not steal all of our data and destroy the entire planet. And it is one of the most ridiculously inept films that I have ever seen in my entire life. I have nothing positive to say about this movie. I'm going to start with the performances. Ice Cube, man, you have embarrassed yourself several times throughout your career. It probably started with those family comedies that you did, and throughout the years you've picked some pretty questionable material. This is arguably one of the worst performances I've ever seen in a movie. It felt like they handed him the script like right before they started filming. Like he did not memorize any of these lines, or because the entire film he's essentially behind a computer screen, I imagine they could just put him in a situation where they have the lines right in front of him. There's this one scene in particular that I just thought was the funniest thing ever, where he's on a Zoom call with like the president and all these people. He's like going through all this expositional dialogue, and like the way he's delivering the line, it legitimately feels like he's reading off of a piece of paper. There's no emotion behind it. There's no inflection to it that feels realistic. It's just one of the most horrible performances that I have ever seen in a movie. Just truly remarkable how bad it is. And I'm sure like if you've seen memes on the internet, one of the funniest parts of this movie is the way that he reacts to like his kids being in danger. Like none of the emotions are real, and he's just so bad. Like really, I cannot stress how horrible of a performance that he gives in this movie. I feel like the actors who play his kids are trying their best to make it feel like it's a real movie, but it comes across as so incredibly lame. I actually feel really bad for them because they are, especially the daughter, she's really trying, like very hard. But this is just such a horrible movie that it's really difficult for them to add anything to the experience. Clark Gregg is in this movie, and what's so funny about his performances and some of the other actors that you'll see, it's almost like they just chose to do this job because they didn't have to leave their room. Like, I'm assuming most people that were involved in this movie, because it's like all shot through phone screens and computer monitors, didn't have to go to a big sound stage. They probably didn't have to film this for very long. And so it's like, sure, we'll collect a paycheck to just do this. And their performances are so phoned in. They really just do not provide anything to the movie at all. And like I said, outside of the kids in this movie, the performances are just absolutely horrible. This is one of the worst looking movies that I've seen in a long time. It's funny because the concept of this plays out very similarly to the film Searching, the film that John Cho stars in. That's all shot through the perspective of him trying to solve this mystery surrounding his family. That's all through computer screens and apps. And that movie is incredibly well made. The gimmick behind the film actually keeps the narrative interesting. This felt like a cheap student film or someone making their first movie, and like they had access to a ton of product placement. And so they just incorporated things like, you'll see Microsoft Teams, Amazon Prime, Zoom, all of these different things pop up and are referenced multiple times through the movie. And it just looks so incredibly ugly. Like every single shot in this movie, especially like, I get it's people running away from like aliens, but like when he'll be on these calls with people, the way that the phones are shaking and stuff, it's just horribly done. It feels like they rushed this production in like 2 weeks, and the shameless product placement is one of the worst elements of this movie. Obviously, like, this is being put on Prime Video, but Amazon Prime is literally the crux of the film. The Ice Cube's daughter's boyfriend is an Amazon delivery driver, and I kid you not, the entire film hinges on someone making an Amazon Prime order so that an Amazon drone can be activated to deliver this pivotal device in order to stop the aliens. And I wish I was making that up, but it is so disgusting, the product placement in this movie. And there's something so hilarious about a movie like this to me, because I keep mentioning Neil Breen. One of the things that I love about Neil Breen is, no matter how inept the movies that he makes are, he clearly got a passion for what he's doing, even though he's very bad at it. And I think that there's something sort of endearing about that. And like, he sees himself as this hero of the free world, and he makes a lot of points about the evils of the government and all of these different things. But like, he's not a shill for a corporation. So there's something relatively endearing about the material that he makes, even though it's incredibly inept. There's something about this movie that made me laugh so very hard, that the entire premise is this guy embedded in his government job, where he essentially just uses his government job to spy on his family members, but also like, he truly believes the government can do no wrong and that there's nothing, evil about them. And then his son comes into the picture to tell him, Dad, the government's hiding these things from you, which you'd think he'd have access to this information, but whatever. And he's like, oh man, the government really is hiding things from us. And it's all like, don't trust these people because they'll do you wrong. And I find something so funny about like that being the through line of the movie, while also this film being a complete and total shill for the Amazon corporation. It really just feels very contradictory and almost laughable, that it's like, we'll criticize this entity that does a lot of evil and awful things, but we'll go ahead and advertise for this other entity that does a lot of evil and awful things. And there was just something about that that really rubbed me the wrong way. But aside from that, it's just completely and totally stupid. The effects for the aliens look absolutely terrible, like really some of the worst I've seen in quite some time. I would say this movie definitely dives into the so bad it's good territory a few times. Unfortunately, it's relatively boring, and so there's a lot of moments that I just found myself like, wow, this is getting really difficult to get get through. But every once in a while, you would get one of those Ice Cube reaction scenes. Like his kids get attacked at one point, and I can't remember. I hope I can find the clip to put it in here. But he's like, "Oh no!" Like just the really horrible responses that he gives to certain situations. You're just like, dude, is this your first time ever acting in a movie? Because that's exactly how it feels. It feels like you've never acted in a film ever in your entire life, which is one of the reasons why this thing is so incredibly enjoyable. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to you because it's not a good movie whatsoever, but if you enjoy so bad it's good like schlock, I think you'll find something to appreciate in the absurdity of how inept this movie is. But that would be the only reason that I would recommend it to you whatsoever, because it is truly abysmal. So if you've seen War of the Worlds, did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was horrible, but also incredibly hilarious. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.